Well, hello again, and welcome to another playthrough. I'm going to be playing today 1998's Colin Mcrae Rally. And I have to open with a sort of starting apology here. I accidentally didn't actually record any game audio while doing this first playthrough here and recording this first stage, which is slightly disappointing. I'm just going to lower that kind of Colin Mcrae Rally box art just a little because it kind of looks a little funky from where I'm sitting. So yeah, full confession, I made a total error here when I recorded the video. Although, to be fair, it is a driving game, so there wouldn't be much to hear other than just the droning of an engine. So I have to admit, I just went on YouTube and searched for upbeat, royalty-free driving music, and I got this 80s drive synthwave background music, royalty-free, no copyright, from Brand X Music, which I think kind of maybe doesn't fit perfectly well with the aesthetic of rallying around. What's this first level set in New Zealand? But as much as I would love to play a bit of traditional Maori music or something over the top of that, I don't think that would work as well. So yeah, this is Colin Mcrae Rally, and this is a game. I've never been a big driving game guy. Like, I mean, I had like Rad Racer on the NES. That was probably my first experience of driving games, and also the likes of Street Racer, Road Rash. So actually just driving for the sake of driving was never my favourite thing when it came to games. It was always, like Road Rash, where you could knock people off their bike and so on, or Street Racer, which is basically the exact same thing but on Genesis, or Mega Drive I should say. So yeah, this first rally set in New Zealand. It does look a bit stranger than I remember. Just the fact that I'm running this through an emulator means that the graphics kind of pop in a way that they wouldn't pop, and it maybe makes things look out of place when you can see how you're sort of driving over a background kind of... I don't know what the correct terms are. You're a polygonal car driving over the background of the sprite of the hills there in New Zealand. But it actually works quite well, and you know, since this is the first race I'm doing here, I just have to have a little muck about with the views and see which one I prefer. I never really like going inside the cockpit in driving games. For whatever reason, it just feels a bit funky for me. So I kind of try and stick to at least seeing the car. And I remember when games like this came out on the likes of the original PlayStation, the likes of Wipeout as well, they would speak about you would get extra frames if you played in the cockpit mode, or not even in cockpit mode, and just out the front of the car mode. Since it meant the PlayStation had to draw less polygons to render the car. But regardless of that, I was always more concerned with just seeing my car and getting a better lay of the land. And I think I first played this game on a demo disc that probably came with official PlayStation magazine around about maybe '97, before the game was actually officially released. Since demo discs were sort of the main way that you would get access to games back in those days. You didn't have any internet to download, you know, the latest trial, and free-to-play games certainly weren't a thing. So I think I first got interested in playing this was one of these demos, when it was quite often the case that I would go to my gran's in the summer months during the day rather than go to school, since both my parents worked. Well, not rather than go to school, when the summer holidays were on, I should say. You know, when I was probably about 10 years old, maybe 11. Well, I mean, I would have been 12 when this came out, maybe 11. I'd go to my granny's during the day, and you know, if it was a crap day or whatever, and sometimes, to be quite honest, even if it was a good day, I'd take the PlayStation, load it up, and play through whatever latest demo disc I'd been allowed to get this month. So, you know, a lot of my fondest memories for PlayStation 1 games, they stem from demo discs that, well, that was where you first got to try things. That was where I first tried games like Tekken, Siphon Filter, Resident Evil 2, although I'd probably played Resident Evil 1 up to that point, since I do remember renting it from our local video scope. So I think what really drew me to Colin Mcrae was, I mean, I'd never really played too many. I'd probably not played too many real serious driving games like this at all up to this point. I do remember borrowing, oh no, what was the series called? Was it Ridge Racer? I remember in the early days of PlayStation swapping that with an old friend of mine called Adam Bate, who I've not spoken to in years. But I think he, or maybe his older brother, had got a PlayStation, and they were obviously quite into their driving games and so on. And I never liked something like a Ridge Racer. I completely muck up this turn, by the way. I turn, go down the right track, and then turn back on myself right before the end as well. Thankfully, the way the Colin McRae games work is you only have to place in the top 6 at the end of the stages in order to advance to the next one. And that's fairly easy to do. You don't have to set any kind of record-beating time or anything just to get through to the finish line. So yeah, another thing that kind of always loved is that Colin McRae himself, and you know, rest in peace if you don't know Colin McRae, the rally driver, he actually died in a helicopter accident, I think about 2007, a good 16 years ago now. Which was a bit of a shame. He was still quite young. I think he was about 39 when he died, and I think he was still rallying up to that point. But yeah, he was a Scottish guy, so you know, I probably played the game and Colin McRae Rally, whatever, I'll give this a go, and then liked it, and then probably asked my mum and dad, oh, who's Colin McRae, and oh, he's a Scottish like rally driver. And, you know, I liked that aspect, especially when I was like 10, 11, 12. Like the idea of any kind of connection to Scotland through a computer game was kind of unheard of, really. Although I suppose up to that point we had things like Grand Theft Auto was designed in Dundee, one of the cities near where I live in Scotland, and also the original Lemmings as well was designed by the same team, DMA Design. So there are 7 official rallies in the game: New Zealand, Greece, Australia, Monte Carlo, Sweden, Corsica, and the United Kingdom. And there's 1 unofficial rally, Indonesia. I believe there's some part of a political aspect to that the Indonesia rally had to be cancelled in 1998 due to political unrest. So, although they are named after the real rallies that happened in that year's World Championship, the actual tracks themselves are fictional, and just more going for the aesthetic of whatever country they happen to be in at the moment. Apparently, when the game was re-released on the PlayStation Value series, which was, I can't remember what that was called, but it was like Platinum Greatest Hits, where like you would you know, strong selling games would get re-released a couple of years down the line at maybe, I think £20 was the going price. It used to be £20 for a Platinum PlayStation game, if they weren't one that you'd already bought when they first came out, since they tended to be the better selling games, the likes of the Tomb Raiders and Tekken games and so on. Obviously, if this being a PlayStation 1 game in 1998, there's no internet-based multiplayer. Although it did allow you to do LAN-based races if you connected your consoles up to 8 drivers on the same network. Which is pretty crazy. The idea of like a local LAN party, a local area network, if you will, it's just not something that you would get these days. Because you don't really need it with the likes of the internet. So the reason Colin McRae was involved, I think he was some kind of technical advisor for the game. He provided input on, you know, handling, and the voice of the co-driver Nicky Grist, who is a Welshman, who unfortunately you'll not hear in this episode because the game audio got completely cut out, but you will. Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that one, had to take a quick phone call. Nothing major though. So yeah, you can't hear the co-driver Nicky Grist unfortunately on the video here, but I think one of the things that actually drew me to this game compared to something like a Ridge Racer or you know, maybe a Gran Turismo, which again I played but didn't really like anywhere near as much as I like Colin McRae, is the whole co-driver aspect, being told like the turns that are coming up and having that displayed to you. I suppose in one way it's a sort of more realistic version of a racing line, which is something that helps a lot if you're not too used to racing games. But yeah, I just loved that whole aspect, having a co-driver shouting out, you know, long 5 right, you know, don't cut, chicane, hairpin right. It helped me as someone who's maybe struggled a bit with driving games up to that point. So yeah, I did have a lot of fun replaying certainly this one. Spoilers for later in the one, I'll have to record, maybe, I'm going to probably do 1 episode per stage. Because it seems, well, not stage, per rally I should say, because it seems you can get through a rally in about 25 minutes for all the stages. Spoiler alert, I've got through them all up to this point first time, other than Sweden, which is a very icy, very snow-based track and is a bit of a nightmare to do without slipping all over the place. That took more than one go, that's all I'll say there. I didn't know this, but there's apparently an Easter egg in the form of an alien abduction stage where the player's car is beamed upwards onto a ship on certain special stages while activating a cheat code. So, sold 4 million copies by late 2002. It was a bestseller in the UK and it went on to become Codemaster's most successful boxed game. Edge praised the PlayStation's authentic simulation, but commented the graphical glitches sometimes occurred. There are a few graphical glitches. I don't think it's in this video. It might be one of the later stages, but in particular the night stages on the emulator really look pretty crazy, and it was actually kind of off-putting. But I managed to get through it. It just kind of became amusing more than anything. Apparently, GameSpot were far less positive, praising the PC version's driving experience but criticising the car setup procedure, the length of the stages and the damage model. They were even less positive about the PlayStation port, criticising a lack of its originality. Also criticised the PC version for being less exciting than traditional games. Well, you know, I mean, it's a driving game. It's going to be difficult to really push the boundaries with a game like that. But, no, certainly I had a good time revisiting it, and to be honest, there is a nostalgia factor here, with it being tied to playing the demo at my granny's, you know, some 25 years ago now. But yeah, this first rally is set in New Zealand, which is a country I have to admit I'm not particularly familiar with. I do know it is on the other side of the world to us, and it's relatively close to Australia. I don't want to say close, but relatively close. So we'll maybe call up a few New Zealand facts. It's an island country in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. It consists of two main land masses, the North and South Island. It is east of Australia and south of the islands of New Caledonia, Fiji and Tonga. The islands of New Zealand were the last large habitable islands to be settled by humans, between about 1280 and 1350. Polynesians began to settle the island and then developed a distinctive Maori culture. In 1642, the Dutch explorer Abel Tasman became the first European to sight and record New Zealand, and in 1840, representatives of the United Kingdom and Maori chiefs signed the Treaty of Waitangi, which in the English version declared British sovereignty over the islands. It became a colony in 1841 within the British Empire, and after a succession of conflicts and back and forths, it gained full independence in 1947. Today, the majority of New Zealand's population of 5.1 million is of primarily European descent, with the indigenous Maori the largest minority, followed by Asians and Pacific Islanders. So, yeah, it's funny, New Zealand, because I think a lot of people say it's a very similar country to Britain, just because it's almost exactly on the opposite side of the world to us, where it's got a similar kind of climate. With kind of, you know, rain and being an island like us, they have a lot of the similar kind of like patterns of weather. I imagine I'm kind of waffling a bit there. I don't really know exactly how the New Zealand ecology or ecosystem functions, but it was good enough for me. Some of my favourite New Zealanders, I would have to say, probably include the likes of New Zealand cricketer Daniel Vettori. Always liked him. Looked a bit like me, although less short, fat Mario, more big, tall Luigi. He was a spin bowler, wore glasses, which is very rare for a cricketer, especially at international level. But I did always like Daniel Vettori. There's also Joanna Lemieux, although I'm no rugby fan. He is well known for being... he died actually, was it fairly recently Joanna Lemieux died? Let me just look that up, I actually need to know. 2015, so it's been a fair bit now. But I remember he was a big enough name to have his own video game series. Actually, Joanna Lemieux's Rugby was released. I remember sort of questioning who he was just based on him having his own game as an ignorant, you know, 10, 11-year-old, whatever it was. There's also Peter Jackson, who directed the Lord of the Rings films, which I think even 21, 22 years after the fact are some of the greatest films ever made, and certainly some of the greatest adaptations of a written work into a movie. Didn't go and see The Hobbits. I think the fact that he split it into 3 separate movies kind of put me off for whatever reason. So yeah, not too much to talk about the rally times themselves here. You can see from the top left that I'm setting okay times, sitting in 3rd for this stage here, and I do love the kind of the slippy nature of the handling in Colin McRae. Like it really does feel like you're having to power slide around these corners, especially when it's like, you know, a hairpin bend or so on. And it's actually really difficult to get faster times than Colin McRae through these stages. Really takes a lot of effort, and I do know there are other cars in the game. I'm not sure how it works in terms of, do you upgrade your car for the championship races, or is it just like a separate extra mode where you get to use a more powerful car for a time attack? I'm not too sure. I haven't got far enough into the game after beating, you know, 5 stages or so to know how that really works. Also, up to this point I've played, haven't really mucked about with any of the, you know, configuration or, you know, repairing suspension or whatever. I've been taking it fairly steady, so rather than flinging myself into corners, just try and avoid any major wipeouts or, you know, crashing the car and losing 10 seconds to pin it out. Little helicopter on the side of the road there, I completely missed that when I was recording the video. And so, Russell Crowe as well. He's another famous New Zealander. Of course, famous for the films Gladiator and A Beautiful Mind. Never really liked that Gladiator film, if I'm honest. It was okay, but I think for all the hype that it got built around it, I remember being fairly disappointed. And who was that crazy New Zealander that scored, like, I actually really need to know that now. Record New Zealand rugby scorer. Is it Dan Carter? Yeah, Dan Carter, yeah. Remember he had a crazy amount of points for the New Zealand rugby team. Dan Carter. Oh, there was also, who was the guy that played for my local football team? I think, was it Rory Fallon? Yeah, that was his name. There's another famous New Zealander. God, he's 41 now. That's crazy. He's a New Zealand former professional footballer who played predominantly as a forward, currently the head coach of Wellington Phoenix. So he's obviously moved back to the Zealand there. But yeah, he was a footballer from New Zealand who played for my my local football team, St Johnstone. Made about 8 appearances, scored 1 goal. So he wasn't a particularly explosive signing, for lack of a better word. I think this is the second last stage. No, well, I think the setup, from what I remember, is each rally had like 5 stages, and then like a much shorter special stage where it was just like a 1v1, where I don't think the outcome really mattered. But yeah, this would have been the track that was in the demo, or the stage that was in the demo, not necessarily the track, because it's the one that I certainly remember the most, just from looking at it. The later stages that we'll see in the later episodes, and I've only got up to Stage 5 Sweden so far. But the later stages, certainly I had no memory or no nostalgia for. Certainly do remember the rolling fields and mountainous terrain of New Zealand there. Just clipped that fence there, just trying to make that turn. That was less than ideal. There are, of course, several other games in the Colin McRae series. It was kind of wildly successful, really. And after this, let's just have a look. Let's just analyse it rather than just guessing. I think the last game that was actually called Colin McRae Rally came out in 2013. The series did later change to, I think it's Dirt, it was just called, or Dirt Rally. Yeah, formerly known as Colin McRae Rally. In 2022, the franchise was rebranded as EA Sports Rally, with both Dirt and Dirt Rally games being released under the brand. Apparently, the Codemasters have acquired the exclusive license to the World Rally Championship Series in June 2020, which will begin a 5-year deal starting in 2023. So, yeah, it's actually pretty crazy how many Colin McRae games there have been. Colin Mcrae Rally, Rally 2.0, just Rally, Rally 3, Rally 04, Rally 5, Dirt, Dirt 2, Dirt 3, Dirt Showdown, Colin Mcrae Rally 2013, Dirt Rally, Dirt 4, Dirt Rally 2.0, and Dirt 5. And Dirt 5 came out 3 years ago, 2020. So we're probably due another game. Oh, no, it says on 1st September they confirmed their next title, EA Sports WRC, would be released on the 3rd of November 2023. So it's not long. Not long at all until the next rally game comes out. And I suppose the thing about games like this is it's kind of difficult, although this completely contradicts what I'm doing right now. It is kind of difficult to go back to these older games in the series since the newer games just tend to iterate on the previous ones much better. Driving games being probably one of the genres that benefits from graphical upgrades the most, as long as, of course, there's a capability to handle the increased demands, because there's no genre of game, I would say, feels worse to play with a stuttery frame rate or inconsistent graphics and so on than rally or driving games in general. So yeah, we get one to stage 6 here. I'm not too sure, maybe there wasn't a special stage for New Zealand. Can't really tell. But either way, the special stages didn't ever really take too much time. I managed to fly through them. I'm actually kind of interested in this EA Sports WRC, upcoming racing game developed by Codemasters. I did think that it'd be nice, you know, because it's not going to take too long to play through all of Colin Mcrae. You know, the 8 stages, 8 episodes, 20 minutes each. Like, what's that? Just short of 3 hours, maybe? It is the first Codemasters Rally game to have official WRC licensed cars since Colin Mcrae Rally 3 in 2002. That might be one to look out for, actually. A total of 78 rally cars. Now, just for comparison's sake, although it's probably not fair to compare a game from 1998 with a game from 2023, the 1998 Colin Mcrae Rally game, I think it said it somewhere on the Wikipedia page, features 8 different cars, is it? No, total of 12 cars in the game. Only 11 in the American version because of an expiration of the Renault license. I see. Oh, unlike the European release of the game, which has real driver names, the American release has made-up driver names, apart from Colin Mcrae himself, because that would be a bit silly if he couldn't feature in his own game. So yeah, I actually might have to... Yeah, so... You know, 11, 12 cars in this original PlayStation game and 78 in the upcoming one, which is pretty crazy when you look at the distance. I mean, I'm not a car guy at all. To me, a car's a thing that you get in to get somewhere. But, you know, a game's a game, and it's kind of fun to chuck yourself around these wee dirt tracks and so on. So yeah, I'll definitely keep my eye out for that. And like I was saying, once I finish this this playthrough, it might be pretty cool to just record like a short little video, maybe to tack onto the end of one of these, that'll just have one of the later games that I have in the Dirt series. I think I've actually got a decent number of them on Steam. Let me just look here. I've got Dirt Rally 2.0, Dirt Rally, and Dirt 3 Complete. So I must just pick these up in Steam sales when they're on at bargain prices, and then never really spend too much time with them. Because, like I say, driving games, you know, I always remember as a kid sort of thinking, why would you play a game where you just drive around when you could play, like, you know, a platformer? That was always my favourite style of game, I suppose. But we're getting fairly close to the end of the stage here, just this last little section to come up. And there's only a minute and a half left in the video, so I don't think I did a special stage on New Zealand. I hope this music kind of fits, because it is a bit of a shame that the game audio was just playing through another channel completely. Even if it would just be mostly engine revving noises and Nicky Grist telling us to not cut. There's a hairpin right. Actually got through number 1 time for that stage, super happy with that, and number 3 in the championship overall. You only need to get or stay in 6th place to pass through to the next rally. So that was a super happy run through New Zealand, and did that without too much bother, especially considering I hadn't picked up a game like this for quite a while. So congratulations to Australia. We did enough to get through the first rally without too much of a problem. And we do get the nice little final results sequence here where Colin Mcrae has to come up in second place, me in third, and then Jay Clusson, who I'd never heard of, but who I presume is a real life rally driver. Although nothing seems to come up when I search on Wikipedia. And that'll do for episode 1. You can see I just drop a little save state there and just get ready for to record the next episode, which will be set in Greece. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back with more Colin Mcrae Rally soon. And whoops, you can just see a little Mario icon appear there, so let's just display that and then end the video there. Thanks for watching.